Today, we're going to talk about the priesthood and Jesus Christ. A priest wears 6 garments. The amice that goes around his neck, the alb, which is the long white garment he wears underneath everything else, the cincture, which is the belt around his waist, then the stole, which is the long, narrow strip that he wears around his neck, and then the chasuble, which is the large vestment that he wears on the outside of his garments, and then finally the maniple, which is a narrow strip of cloth that he wears around his arm, which isn't used very often nowadays, but you'll see it in a second. So here at the bottom of the stairs at Christ the King, we have this fascinating crucifix, which depicts Jesus as a priest. So you'll notice he has all the priestly garments that one would expect to see. He has the chasuble here on the outside. He has the stole peeking through here at the bottom. He has the alb on underneath, which you can see here, and then on his arms. And then you have the maniple as well that he's wearing. The amice is hidden underneath his beard, and the cincture is hidden underneath everything else. But he is depicted as a priest with the priestly garments. So for the next minute or two, I'd just like to explore the theology of the priesthood of Jesus using the book of Hebrews. So the book of Hebrews describes Jesus as a priest, but every priest is someone who offers sacrifice. So in the Old Testament, the priest offered sacrifices of animals or cereals. What sacrifice does Christ offer? The book of Hebrews in chapter 9 explains. When Christ appeared as high priest, he entered once for all into the holy place, taking not the blood of goats and calves, but his own blood. The offering that Jesus makes to God the Father is the sacrifice of his own blood. It's the sacrifice of his life. Hebrews says this: Jesus is the mediator of a new covenant, since a death has occurred. In other words, his death on the cross is the moment when he offers his blood as a sacrifice. That's why Jesus is a priest, because of that moment of sacrifice. And so this crucifix here is kind of a dense theological symbol of that reality, of Jesus on the cross making his priestly sacrifice. This crucifix shows us that his death on the cross is not just an execution, not just a tragedy of history, but this priestly moment when Jesus is sanctifying his people. So then we might say, okay, but is that over and done with 2,000 years ago? What happened to this sacrifice? The book of Hebrews again says this: Christ has entered not into a sanctuary made with hands, a copy of the true one. So he's not offering the sacrifice in the temple of the Old Testament in Jerusalem, but Christ has entered into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God on our behalf. So the book of Hebrews is saying Jesus Christ, with this priestly moment of the cross, has brought his blood into heaven and continues to offer that sacrifice for us. It's an eternal sacrifice. Jesus is the eternal high priest. And so when you see this crucifix, you should recognize that Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, makes that covenant through the blood of his cross.